Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good.
Well, man, you're gonna have to serve the audience tonight.
All right, folks, again, thank you for your patience. Just had to wrap up some conversations with Chamberlain and Counselor Kelly. I will note that everybody's in attendance. Can I get an approval of the minutes of the October 14th, 2021 Finance Committee Development? Counselor Canales, second by Counselor Bop. Any changes, deletions, or updates? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item 2.1.
That's right. Never mind. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. We're all on the same page now. Thank you, Jeff. The 2.1 draft resolution authorizing budget transfer, general fund rec complex transfer, motion by Counselor Canal, second by Counselor Gibbs. Discussion. I will I'll let Chamberlain Marks take this one. I know that this is a throwback from 2022 carryover expenses. No discussion.
The Marks take this, so I think we're all waiting for you to take it. I don't know what's happening.
$289,000 is the deficit that existed at the end of the year 2020. In 2019, we were just talking about this in the mayor's office, Councilor Kelly and the mayor, and at the end of 2019, the deficit was $70,000. Because of what happened in 2020 with the rec complex shut down, all the revenue programs and leasing on all the properties, the loss went from 70,000 to 289,000. So at this point, and we talked about this earlier, 3 or 4 meetings ago, or 3 or 4 finance committee meetings ago. We have to eliminate that deficit by transferring from the general fund. Take care of negative cash balance. It's roughly $270,000 in direct complex funds right now. By being negative, of course, it's borrowing cash. Every week, and there's interest being charged from the other funds, cash. Operate the direct complex. So we need to make this transfer to get it back to square one. Go from there to see how the rec complex is going to from this point forward every year, which basically it's anticipated it will, because we're leasing the facilities out for less than their cost.
Say that again.
We're leasing the facilities out for someone else to operate and earn the program income. We're leasing them out for less than their cost.
Yeah.
So I anticipate another loss in the rec complex.
Don't we have a partial revenue share with them as well as okay,
But our cost still
it's
exists.
still over.
Like,
okay.
for example, Crate Center, right?
Yeah,
Crate Center expenses anywhere, I don't want to inflate the number, so I'm going to say 70,000. I think that's fair. And we lease that space for about 40. Offset that revenue. We need to typically find events to fill the space when the main vendor isn't leasing the space. Considering all the COVID issues and people not restarting their programs and their projects and their events, it's been difficult to do that this year. The beach, for example, thank God we opened the beach, but without a border open, it's very difficult to fill, considering that the majority of our traffic is from Canada. Rec Center, 0 programs run by the city, so we don't get program revenue, but we do get leasing revenue, which is not a lot, but we still have to pay the expenses in that facility as well. If you ask me, and if it were only up to me, and as I've said before, we would be having a different conversation about the crate and whether or not we want to keep that building versus return it to the earth. Lack of a better term. I don't mean to make light of it, but and then the rec center itself is a great asset for the city, but as a real property asset, I am of the philosophy that we should fix it up and sell it. That's my philosophy. I'm not Not the one pulling the trigger on anything. I'm not pulling levers or anything like that. It's just a personal philosophy of mine. I think the city would be better off taking those steps to address some of these ongoing year after year after year expenses that we just don't foresee ever getting out of. Considering, yes, Mr. Kelly.
Last night I saw that number, $289,000 in this resolution. And I started grumbling and grousing to myself about, well, where'd all that money come from? And then I read a little further into the documentation that we were sent, and Richard outlined, expense by expense, what that was spent for, and it was all good stuff. Fix the roof, repair water damage, whatever it was. It just all made sense and added up. And I compare this number in 2020 from what we lost in the rec complex in 2019, and what really led us to decide to contract out those services rather than keeping them in-house. We lost about $800,000 in the rec complex in 2019. And that was pre-COVID. So we couldn't really use that as an excuse. So 289 is not that bad. We'd hope for better, but
All things considered.
it's just not that bad. And about the crate is the only facility within probably 100 miles where children can play indoor soccer, and they do. My grandchildren were there last night at 8:15 playing soccer, and they are in the 10 to 12 age range. And to me, as an old man, that's kind of late for somebody to be up who's 10 or 12. But they love to play soccer. So sometimes they go to other cities to play soccer, Syracuse, or sometimes even down into Pennsylvania, over to Vermont and Massachusetts. And what they always find are these wonderful facilities that are clean and modern and organized. And they wonder, well, why can't we have something like that in Plattsburgh? I think it's fortunate that we have a crate center at all. It may not be the greatest in the world, but it does give kids an outlet. I was over there on Sunday for a tour of the surrounding area, and the crate center parking lot was quite full. That was mid-afternoon on a Sunday. So you go over there anytime and you will see activities happening. And I am really loath to do anything with that crate center except improve it. Make it more accessible to children. Make it so that kids who live in Massachusetts would enjoy coming up here to play soccer instead of our kids having to go everywhere else to be in tournaments and whatnot. And, you want to talk about revenue and exposing people to Plattsburgh and letting them get to know the place. Well, what better way to do it than bring your kids up here for a weekend for a soccer tournament? Right now, that isn't happening, unfortunately. So I would say, yeah, tear the crate down if you want, but be prepared to build something there to take its place. It is so valuable to kids. And I'm finding out young adults.
Oh, yeah, a lot of
play
adult
flag
leagues play out
football
there.
and
Yep, a lot of adults play leagues out of there too.
all sorts of things. So it's a valuable asset to our city. It was valuable when it was a hockey rink a couple of decades ago. Yeah, again, it was filled every night. So let's be careful about saying that we don't want it, or that we question its value, because kids everywhere love the place. And they see that as a great outlet for their recreational needs. So that's all I have to say about that.
Cool. Any other discussion? Roll call, or sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. 2.2 draft resolution authorizing healthcare plan renewals for fiscal year 2022 with Highmark Blue Shield of Northeastern New York. Highmark with corresponding renewal participating stop-loss insurance. Motion. Councilor Bob, second by Councilor Canales, discussion. The renewal of our healthcare contract is going up by 2.8%. 2022. On average, I believe that's a little bit lower than everybody else. I think what did Mark say? Everybody else is going up by 10, 15 or
The industry
something.
average that everybody talks about is about 10 to 12% annually. The city is normally in the 3 to 5% range. This is 2.8%, and it's driven by a 21% increase in the city's stop loss insurance coverage. So the rates for care that our claimants are incurring to the city aren't increasing at the dramatic rate of the rest of the marketplace is seeing. However, we do have a stop loss to be concerned about because we have large claim costs that have to be covered, and our history hasn't been good with that, and so that's why it's a 21% increase in that stop loss. But that only drives a 2.8% increase overall for the city's health care costs. Does that make sense to everybody?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 2.3 draft resolution authorizing real property tax write-off parcel 207.12-2-40. Motion. Councilor Canales, second by Councilor Bop. Discussion.
Yeah, who is this company? This Lake City 115 Realty Company LLC, who owns that?
I personally don't know.
Anybody know?
I do, but I'm not sure that we should say it publicly. I'm not sure about that.
Oh,
But the information I've gotten from the city's assessor, Tim Sobieski,
uh-huh.
is that the reason this valuation has gone down so low is that whoever bought that is so restricted to develop that property doesn't look like they can do anything with it because of the environmental concerns, because it used to be an oil tank farm that took large offloads from Wilcox Dock, stored the fuel in those tanks, and then Exxon Corporation actually was, that distributed that fuel around town. Now those tank farms are gone. Exxon hasn't cleaned it up, and they're not taking any responsibility for it. But they definitely warranted that property is going to acquire that issue. So you can't dig in the ground, you can't put in foundations, you can't do much of anything with it. And if an oil plume leaches into the neighbor's property, ground, the owner is responsible.
Where is this located?
Right down
So-
Wilcox Dock.
Yeah,
Cumberland Avenue.
Empty field behind that, across the street.
It's actually the wooded field. It's not the
No, it's the wooded field right
it's
next
the
to
wooded
it.
field
Next to
just
it.
on the south of where that open field is.
There's actually a sign that says property owner, something like that. It says.
Yeah.
Tribal.
Oh,
Don't ask.
could be. Be surprised.
Huge oil tank farm.
Wow. I wondered what was back there and why it was fenced off and all that and not being used, so.
So I thought it was the empty property, but it's the wooded one, yes. But that's
Mhm.
just because it's remediated itself, it's grown in the last 10 to 15 years. Those tanks have been grown.
is it the same owner that owns both those parcels?
No,
No?
separate.
Yeah, and he has some environmental concerns there, but not as many.
Not as much as that wooded one because of what's backed up to the fence and what used to be the old church.
Okay, when I first moved here, that was a huge complex,
Mhm.
and the barges used to come in across. the Who knows what's underneath the ground? So anyway, they say it's a calculation adjustment on this, and I don't know that it ever went through Article 7 process to look at the value or grievance process, but they're just saying that it's a calculation difference. They should have put it in 2021 taxes and failed to do so. So they're asking us to adjust the bill for the tax. Property tax payer and already the school taxes have been adjusted down to $28,300 assessed value.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Discussion on the October month-end report. Everybody should receive this report, pretty standard report, same thing that we get every month. It does go line by line in every city fund department that we have. Outlines such things as payroll, overtime, other expenses. Let's see, discussion on appropriated budget and corresponding expenditure report. Again, that's a similar report that we send out every month. Typically, I like to categorize it. I didn't have a chance to categorize it this month. Again, some of these expenses are reimbursed, some of them are emergency, some of them are planned, some of them fall into general fund, some of them don't.
Two of them haven't been adopted yet. They're to be adopted in next week's meeting based on meetings we've had up to now on this one tonight. For the 289,000 for the rec.
3.1 draft resolution adopting findings resolutions in order the city apply for pursuant to Article 17 of the New York State General Municipal Law regarding the proposed annexation of property located on LeMay Drive. Motion by Canales, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion. This is the required resolution adopting the findings of the public hearing to move forward with the annexation of the property at LeMay Drive. Should say boundary line adjustment as requested by the county, petitioned by the county. This is I think this is the only piece that's required by the city for this portion of LeMay Drive. If we want to discuss the other pieces to Reeves and Sharon, the local law that we adopted last public hearing really needs to just be finalized with a survey. The local law and the survey is then submitted to the state for finalization of the annexation of those two properties. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 4.1 discussion on community development project updates. I did ask Matt Miller to come to talk about the numerous projects that are coming out of his office as an update. I know Councilor Gibbs did ask a question about the B&L grant initiative, grant writing initiative, and so that's also included in this project update as well.
Councilor Gibbs, to first address your questions on the grant writing and grant administration agreement that the city has in place with Martin Judas. That is a 3-year agreement with a maximum amount payable of about $56,000 per year. To date, since the agreement was executed in May, Martin Judas have submitted 2 grants on behalf of the city, both of them under the consolidated funding application process to the state. Both of them had to do with improvements to the beach. The CFA awards are announced in December, so we are hoping for good news when those award announcements come out in a month or so.
They've also reached out to departments as we expected them to discuss departmental grant needs, initiatives that they could back into some grants, as well as just a better understanding of each department and their opportunity to look at their grant opportunities and see if there's a match between what the department needs and what they have an understanding of the numbers of grants out there.
And they've had discussions with every department head at this point, and they anticipate providing the city with a overarching grant strategy report by the end of November. And that will guide future funding rounds, not only for the CFA, but for other grant opportunities that fall outside of the normal New York State process.
Thank you.
Yep. Before I go down the list, are there any specific projects that any other council would like an update on. Okay. For the downtown parking system, the purchase of the parking kiosk has been approved by the council. They're under fabrication. We had a walking tour of all these sites with the subcontractor who was pouring the concrete pads earlier this week. We're hoping to have all of that work done before the weather gets too bad, and the kiosks are scheduled for delivery currently sometime in January. For the city beach, the investigatory work that the council approved a few months ago has been ongoing for a few months now. We received thus far the conclusions of the wetlands delineation report. There is ongoing boring activity. They've already completed the borings offshore to determine the subsurface composition of the soil there and the suitability for construction of piers at the lake. They're going to be moving on to the land side now to determine what lies underneath, not only to create the beach complex, but also the wooded area to the left to determine what we can build and where we can build it. And the demolition of the north bathhouse is scheduled for, it's scheduled to start sometime within the next couple of weeks. There have been a few delays with the contractor and staffing availability on his end, but we are looking to have that completed before winter hits in earnest.
In addition, that's the same contract that we signed to remove the northern bathhouse as well as the Coast Guard house at the Sailors Beach.
For the city parks, we're continuing walking tours of the individual parks to identify specific action items to supplement the city parks assessment report that was released earlier this year. Our recreation staff has been busy addressing the smaller items on that report. And once it's complete, that will of course be presented to the council and likely released to the public as well, just to show all of the work that still needs to be done. For the LRAP finalization, the comp plan and the zoning code update grant, we've been going back and forth with Saratoga Associates for several months on updated drafts of the comp plan. We anticipate having a report for a final draft report for internal review around Thanksgiving, at which point it can be discussed with the project advisory committee and the public and start the formal process of incorporating public feedback to the draft report into the final report, with it to be adopted thereafter by the council. The zoning code updates, we're also working with Saratoga on that. They are focusing their efforts on the portions of the code that need to be updated based on the LRAP. And we are in further discussions internally about the best way to approach the larger zoning code update that I think most people in the room would agree is necessary to address some of the serious shortfalls and other issues that were encountered over the course of the DRI and the Derby Street permitting project. For the Saranac River Trail Phase 2, that has been completed. We had the ribbon cutting this afternoon. The state funding that was attached to that project of the $1.6 million in expenses that were reimbursable through the Department of Transportation, we have thus far received all but 191K of that, so that's going well, and we are in the process of compiling all of the materials for the $500,000 U.S. Parks grant that was attached to that project as well. And from a total cost standpoint, the approved contractual amount for the SRT was $3,098,501. All told, the amount that we're going to be paying Luck Brothers at the end of this is $3,007,287. So it came in a little more than $90,000 under the originally approved budget. And if anybody has any questions while I'm talking, please feel free to interrupt me.
So how much are we ending up borrowing on the project?
Roughly $1 million. We did 2 rounds of borrowing. Roughly $1 million. Got it, that service right now.
Thank you.
For the Great Center, the city gym and the marina, Elevate 518 has opened their second year managing the winter sports programs at the Crate, as was just discussed. The city gym, of course, is under the management of the YMCA, and they have seen a consistent uptick in the membership numbers. And the financial results thus far have been on the more optimistic end of the spectrum, which we consider before signing the lease agreement with the line. For the Streetscape and Riverfront Access Project, the Arts Park, of course, was completed in September. Everything down there has been winterized. The splash pad hasn't been working since September, but of course that will be brought back online in the spring. The other two primary projects that were to be completed under this grant were the Riverwalk and the improvements to Durkee Street itself. Due to the geographic proximity of those projects to the Durkee Street development project, there are concerns about construction sequencing if they were to move forward before a final resolution of the prime project is reached. We are hoping that that project moves forward. Construction starts on the mixed-use development, with construction of both the Riverwalk and the Durkee Street improvements to follow thereafter, so they're not both on top of each other and they're not degrading the improvements that were just completed with heavy truck traffic and a lot of construction material. And we've submitted a request to the Department of State for an extension of the existing grant contract because its current expiration date is May of 2022. For the revolving loan programs, phase one of that, of course, is complete, and Rich and the Finance Office have completed bringing the city up to date with all of our reporting requirements and the remittance of accrued interest on those revolving loan accounts. I'm in contact and have pretty regular updates from our consultant for both phase one and phase two in Holland. We discussed what currently is about a 70-page draft report for phase two, and that is the reconstitution of the loan programs so that they can then again become available to anyone in the city who is looking to start a business or looking to renovate a property. So she is hoping to have phase two of that completed by Christmas, so we can start marketing that roughly $2 million in available funding to the public next year. For the Marketside Master Plan, the second half meeting for that project was held in September. We reviewed Barton and LaJudas' initial concept for that. And there is the first open meeting to solicit public feedback, and that is scheduled for next Tuesday, the 16th. For the City Hall Windows Project.
Jeff, are you on that committee, Harborside?
Yeah.
You are, yeah.
For the
Sorry.
City Hall.
Sorry.
No problem. For the City Hall Windows Project, the contract was signed in early September. We had about 2 months of back and forth with on-site visits from our contractor to verify the measurements of each individual window, because given the age of the building, there are minor variations. Nothing is exactly the same. Good news is that the shop drawings have been approved and fabrication of the windows is currently underway. We expect them to be delivered sometime early in 2022. And we are still anticipating completion of the project by April of 2022, because that is when the DASNY grant attached to this project expires. For the hotel development down at the harbor side, we recently received an appraisal of the proposed parcel to be included as part of that development project, and are in continuing discussions with the potential developer to see if we can come to an equitable agreement for actually putting something down there on the harbor side parcel.
Are we still working with the same company?
Yes. Touched on grant writing. For the farmers market relocation, of course, that was completed back in May. It was a successful season from all accounts. Other good news is that the roughly $300,000 in reimbursable expenses that the city put forward to complete that project have already been received back from the state, so we closed that project out.
So the farmers market building had some repairs that needed to be done, a leaky roof, things like that. At what point are those things going to be addressed?
So we're looking to address the leaky roof, certainly before they open for the 2022 season. A few of the other improvements that they requested, increased ventilation.
Windows.
Yeah, better than, windows that can open rather, because it does get stuffy in there. We're trying to balance the additional cost of those improvements and trying to put them into another grant program rather than, having the city be on the hook for them, which we would be if we went ahead with them right now. The path that we have been exploring is there is a county LRAP grant that was awarded several years ago to multiple municipalities, and that included about $65,000 to the city for the design of the new boathouse down by the marina. What we are looking to do is repurpose that grant funding to put together a detailed bid specification for a second phase of improvements to not only the farmer's market building, but also the surrounding site. We'll have some general recommendations as to what those improvements should be in the Harborside Master Plan that's scheduled to be completed by the spring. We use that county LRAP grant to put together the detailed construction drawings for the actual improvements. And then we still have to find additional funding for the construction itself to implement those improvements once the bids are received. So the essential repair to the building, certainly the leaks, is something that we cannot leave for another season. We're looking to have those completed either this fall, or if we can't beat the snow, certainly in the spring for the market.
Real quick, can we backtrack on the Harborside parcel? What was the appraisal for that?
Mayor, do you want to disclose that?
Is it public? I mean, it seems like that
I
would
guess
be,
somebody could foil it, but.
that would be, I mean, like, it's public, it's not, and I don't think it should be a surprise.
Okay, it's $1.25 million approximately.
1.25?
1.25.
Okay.
Matt, I just
And
want to
how-
pass on something that I got from the people, farmers market people. The biggest thing they really want to see down there, in addition to the other things, is that you have to have a decent exhaust fan there. If you put an exhaust fan in the ceiling, would eliminate, windows would be fine, but an exhaust fan would draw all the outside air in and make it much more comfortable. Without that, I don't care how many windows you have, you need to exhaust the hot air out of the top, the roof area. That's the way that you cool it down.
Mhm.
So that's something they mentioned to me that they really wanted to see.
Yeah, no, ventilation was a.
So they- would they
Yeah, it's
prefer-
not just ventilation, you need exhaust. Heat.
Mhm.
More windows won't do anything.
Has anybody heard anything about the need for bathrooms, like a proper bathroom facility?
Yes, they did mention that.
Yeah, okay, I was one, because I would imagine that would be one of our priorities, is to ensure that there's proper facilities down there.
This is the thing we brought down there, well, it works fairly well.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
not,
temporary.
it's temporary, but it's not handicap accessible either, is it?
No,
The bathroom trailer is not, but the
No.
farmer's market does have a handicap accessible porta john that has been installed down there.
Correct, yep.
Yeah.
It's a nice
So
trailer.
certainly not ideal, but it
Yeah.
works now.
Okay.
It's 1.25. Roughly 11 acres.
The Turkey Street project is, of course, still under litigation, but the city has taken all the steps that it can take at this point to prepare for a favorable outcome of that litigation. All of the necessary agreements to facilitate closing and conveyance of the property have been approved by the council pending prime companies satisfaction of all the preconditions for the closing. And the project opponents have chosen not to litigate against either the pilot approval from the Clinton County Industrial Development Agency or any of the subsequent council actions. So the litigation pending against the land use approvals is the only remaining legal avenue by which the opponents could feasibly derail the project. And there are a few outstanding DRI projects that we are still working on reimbursement for, but we are still confident that we will receive the money that we have expended. And that is a full report.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. No public comment, I assume, so there's no need for executive session. I know that there's no item on here for new business, but is there any new business?
Yes, well, I had something, we need to, as time progresses, we're getting into the holidays here, we need to approve our financial plan. I would suggest that Mr. Kelly and myself present the last version of that we had, distribute it to the council, look at it. See, I know some of you have seen it already. I think Jamie had gotten a copy. That was there. Pass that around and have a vote on it next. That's the next step we should be doing in our budget process. Because we need to keep moving. We're running out of time for this year. Once you get into the holidays, we seem to kind of push this stuff off. I know twice in my 3 years, Elizabeth and Mike got the same comment that we waited until January to actually get serious about finalizing the budget. I think we really should make an effort to do that before the first of the year.
Yeah.
There's no reason to postpone. So that being the first step, we probably should have done that a while ago. But we do have updated numbers, which is great for as far as for this year. But I just wanted to stress that we're only adding a year to this plan. This isn't a whole new plan of any sort. All we're doing is adding one more year to it. It's basically the same plan that we had last year and the year before. So all we're doing is adding 1 year to it. It's not a complete redo or anything like that.
So is that the same document that we all got by email?
Yes.
Okay.
I made copies of it here, so I will pass that out to each
Oh,
of you.
great, thank you.
Study, and I know without any,
Yeah, I'll
good
pass them down for
discussion
you.
on it. It's hard to know maybe what the numbers mean, so it would be really nice if we could get together in small groups of 1, 2, or 3 and discuss it before we vote on it. Also, I made copies for everyone of the movies report.
Is this the one you sent us?
Yeah, I sent you that too, but the interesting stuff is on the bottom of the page and the beginning of the second page, which is on the back here. So
Pass it
take a
down.
look at that.
So it sounds like we're ready to put it on the next week's agenda.
Yes, I think we should.
I would, from my office, I would say that I'm not comfortable, 100% comfortable with these numbers, with this projection. Counselor Kelly and I met today, and I think that I would be a lot more comfortable if there was a little bit more, I have that. If there was maybe a little bit more coordination before it was finalized, I think that I can see where there's some divergence, not a lot. It's not, I don't think there's any major philosophical differences here on that projection or that proposal, but I think that I would not be 100% comfortable putting my name on that if it were approved by council.
Well, we had a good discussion today.
We did.
Well, I'm gonna say we should put that on the agenda, put our feet to the fire, and let's finish this up. We've been fooling around with it now for 3 or 4 weeks. Let's get serious and finish it.
So I personally would like to see what these budget scenarios actually look like besides, this.
That's why it would be good to meet
Yeah.
with each of you one-on-one before it comes to a vote, so that you fully understand what you vote for.
Or you wouldn't have to do
It's not a
one-on-one, you could do
complicated
small.
We could do
Yeah.
small
Yeah, you
groups.
could do groups of 3.
3 at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's not a complicated document. It's pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot of numbers in there. I mean, there's some complicated formulas, but it's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of lines to read here. I think it's not like looking at the news report.
Very true. Okay, sounds like,
And I will just comment, give a plug for us in the past. The last 2 that we did were extremely active. So we're not far off on any of this.
yeah, and it's really important for us to understand what the budget projections look like as we're figuring out what the council budget looks like. So that we're budgeting, not just appropriately isn't really what I'm looking for. Responsibly, so that we don't run the fund balance down to nothing or deficit. So thank you for your work on that.
That's the problem with the Plattsburgh city finances. We do suffer from a structural deficit in which expenses increase faster than revenue. That's always going to be a problem until someone finds a way to solve it. One way to solve it is to increase revenue, and that's Mayor Rosenquist's big initiative, I would say, looking for ways to increase revenue. Personally, I think the way to do it is to decrease expenses. And over the past 4 years or so, some of us on the council, Councilor Gibbs, Councilor Moore, myself, we did work very actively to reduce expenses and streamline operations in the city. I don't think we did everything we could have done, but we did a lot, and it paid off. So that those numbers you're looking at the bottom that are in red were in black for a few years, and that was very nice. And we were increasing the fund balance each year by $500,000 approximately. So those are the kinds of things that help cities stay sustainable. And I hope that we can get to that point so that control expenses, look for opportunities for revenue, and hopefully keep us in the black going forward.
Thank you.
Also,
There is one more thing I'd like to talk about if we're done with that issue. I looked at Chamberlain Mark's reports that he sends us each month, and this month looks quite a bit different than the ones we've seen in previous months. The expenses seem to be outweighing revenues in several of our funds. The general, of course, the rec complex is always in the minus. Parking lot, water, I believe that's it. So I know we're not at the end of the year yet, but we're darn near it. And we need to kind of examine and keep our eyes open about what are we spending money on, and see if we can do our part to reduce expenses, and hopefully the revenues will take care of themselves. Love to see us end the year in the black, but I'm not sure that it's going to happen this year. Something to be aware of.
Thank you for that.
Anything else? All right, entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilor Canales, second by Councilor Gibbs. All in favor?
All right.
All right.
Bye.
We are now adjourned. Thanks, folks.